Welcome back to the Way to Native Chronicles, and today we're going to take a look at a subject that hopefully is useful to some. That's going to be the assessment of revolvers, used revolvers, well, even new ones, you know, because when they're sitting in the shop, they being demonstrated to a lot of users and potential customers, and you know, they can come in various conditions, and a lot of people have questions on how to check a revolver over. So I'm not going to go into a whole lot of depth on this, but I'm going to cover some of the main points for checking over a revolver. And before I do that, I'm just going to give a little mention to my wife, Nakia Gladys. She might notice I'm wearing something different today. So I've got this vest that she's made for me. Now, Gladys, Nakia, is her native name. She's Dene from northern Alberta. She makes all kinds of traditional crafts, and you can see this vest. It's got fringes on it, and all kinds of stuff. So, yeah, a vest like this is made out of traditional brain tanned smoked moose hide, and they're very precious, and I think they're beautifully made, beautiful designs. She has a special talent for beading, and so if you're interested in obtaining for yourself some traditional crafts, and I mean really authentic traditional crafts, check her out. Her YouTube channel is on my featured videos list on the right side of my channel homepage. Check it out, and you know, it's not just vests she makes. You can see in the background here those rifle cases. She's made all those herself as well. Just beautiful work. So you know, it's not going to be cheap. It's all hand done. Everything is hand stitched and using the traditional materials. So give that a check out. So with that said, let's get on to looking at these guns. Okay, let's start off with a sample revolver. This one here is a model 29.3. It's I bought it in the mid-1980s, brand new, and it's had several thousand rounds put through it. So it's a well-used revolver. And initially, when you see a revolver, you want to look it over on the exterior first and see if there's any wear marks and things like that. You know, you might get around the muzzle. This will give you an indication of how much it's being used. Now, this video has been it's being made in Canada, and unlike the States, holster use may not be as frequent in this country because we're just not allowed to carry these things around on our hip like many states are. So but this one has been carried around in the holster. I do have a holster for it, and I'm actually allowed to use one. So it's a little bit of an odd case. If you get a lot of holster wear, you know, you maybe see some bluing rubbing off on the cylinders. These are just aesthetics things, so nothing to. It depends on what you're looking for. But generally, you got to look at the gun, and you want to also look at the condition of the screws, the screw heads. See if Joe Blow has been monkeying around trying to take apart this gun and put it back together and stuff, because 9 times out of 10, I think, when people try to do their own gunsmithing, the big mistake they make is they use the wrong screwdriver bits, and then they wind up deforming the heads of those screws, and it looks like real crap when they're done, but they don't realize it until the damage has been done. So you know, check those screws out, see if this gun is being competently cared for. Now, the other thing you want to do with the gun is you want to of course check to see that it has no rust on it or anything like that, but from a safety standpoint, you know, making sure this gun is empty, you want to try what they call hammer push off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this hammer back, and I better not be able to push that hammer forward. I'm putting quite a bit of force against it. If somebody's been doing their own homemade trigger work on the gun, what they'll often do is they're going to polish through the hardness on the trigger sears, and you'll wind up with a gun that if you push on the hammer, it just goes click, it just closes without having pulled the trigger. That's really bad. That's a safety condition. Trigger pull. Now this one here, it's got a nice light trigger pull. And by the way, don't worry about dry firing a revolver. The best shots dry fire their guns like crazy. I've done all my life. It's never hear of any seen any of this hammer crystallization stuff that some people talk about. Just fire it away. That's a cheap way to practice with a handgun. So anyways, where was I going with this? Okay, your trigger weight on this gun is quite light. You want it to be crisp, no creep at all. So as I'm applying pressure to this, it's just got to snap. That's how you're going to get your best accuracy with a handgun, I think. Now, it can't be so light, though, that it's unsafe. So basically, this gun better be able to support its own weight by the trigger, and you can see this one does. I've done a little bit of modification to this gun. I've put in a slightly weaker rebound spring and adjusted the strain screw by, I don't know, a quarter of a turn, something like that. But it's still safe. There, now I just pushed on a little bit on the handle and then it snapped. So it's pretty close to the edge, but this is what is considered a safe trigger. If I push on it, there, it's close to the edge, but she's safe. You want to check the double action function of the gun too. Another thing you want to check with these guns is you want to check its lockup. So what we're going to do here is going to pull the hammer back. I'm going to pull the trigger while holding the hammer. I'm going to let it just fall freely, but the main thing is I'm holding the trigger back, not letting it go forward. Now the gun is in its locked up state, and I want to take it and I want to wiggle the cylinder. You're going to get a little bit of play. You see that? That's not much. A little bit is to be expected. But, and do that on every cylinder. Lock it up. See if this gun is worn out. I'm holding back the trigger as I do this while I'm turning it, okay? So every cylinder. And you can also check on the gun the back and forth. It's going to be a little bit. You don't want much. And instead of spitting out a bunch of measurement figures to you right now that you won't remember when you're in the gun store anyways, I'm just kind of giving you a visual demonstration. Like, this is so little movement that you can't hardly see it probably on the video camera. But it is there, I can feel it. The other part of this is if you look through the gap right between where the cylinder meets the barrel, there should be only a very tiny gap. You can take along some feeler gauges with you too when you go to look at a revolver. That's actually a good idea. And then take it with the cylinder with its slack all the way back and slide that feeler gauge right in between the cylinder and the end where the barrel begins. Now, on this gun here, it's .0015, which is really tight. You don't want a very big gap there. And a lot of this stuff I'm just saying to you, you can compare it to other revolvers. If you go into a gun store, there'll probably be other revolvers sitting there, and just you'll get an idea pretty quick of what is a large gap and what isn't. But a lot of it is going to be based on how much end play you have here, and you can kind of, if you're getting .003, that's okay too. That's I think once you get up to .006 and above, then you're getting too much gap. But the better the gun is made, the better that this gap is going to be. It can't be right completely zero, because if that happens, then as your barrel rotates and gets a little bit of grime on the face of the cylinder, then it's going to start to bind against the end of the barrel. So you got to have a little bit of a gap, and that little bit of a gap is the reason why you don't ever hold your hand around the revolver, because you are going to get a bit of gas blow by when as the bullet jumps from the cylinder to the barrel. So it goes from the cylinder through the chamber, and then it goes to a forcing cone that's at the beginning of the barrel, which just kind of tapers it into the barrel. So it's very critical with a handgun that you have a tight spacing, because if you don't have tight spacing between the chamber and the barrel, that in the forcing cone, that you're going to lose velocity and you're going to lose accuracy. So now the things that are harder to check is you want to have these your chambers be of a diameter that is slightly larger than the barrel, because if on some guns the chamber is slightly smaller, in fact they're not always consistent either, so if they're slightly smaller than what the slug diameter of the barrel is, then they're going to squish the bullet down to a smaller size than is optimum for the barrel itself, and then you're going to wind up with leading and all kinds of inaccuracy problems. So I mean, that's something that you're not going to be able to check yourself very easily unless you bring specialized tools with you. But I'm just going to mention that. Now, what else do we want to look at? You want to also look at the crane on the gun. Now, you can take the gun out, you can spin the crane, right? No harm in doing that. You notice when I spin the crane, I'm looking for a little bit of end wobble there on the end of the crane. So what can happen with a revolver quite easily is if, let's say, they get a bunch of crap stuck between the extractor there, some grains of unburned powder, or the gun just gets gummed up a lot. What will happen is that when they go to open the gun, they can't, and it's sort of locked up. So, and they say, well, now what am I going to do? So then you've got the cylinder lock latch all the way forward, and it can't get the cylinder out. So they'll take a hammer or a mallet with the latch pushed forward and smack it out. And what will happen when you do that, very likely, is you're going to bend that extractor rod. So that's a very easy thing to check very quickly. So what else to look for? You want to see that this thing hasn't been what they call cowboyed. A lot of people will take their revolvers and they do like on the movies. They open the cylinder and then they swing it and slap it shut like that. That's really, really bad. It's going to bend things. It's going to bend the little ball here, or little locking bit. It's right there. That is what engages into the little slots in your cylinder. So it's going to bend that or wear it off. It's going to damage the slot that it fits to in the cylinder, and it's going to bend this crane because, you know, especially with the heavier revolvers, with the heavy chambers, the cylinders carry a lot of weight, and when it's slapped shut, things bend. So you can get this crane come out of alignment. It's going to be a little bit of a crack where the two pieces of metal meet, but it shouldn't be much. It should be pretty tight. So you can see this one closes up almost like it's one piece of metal when it's closed. You want to look for something like that. The other thing you can look for is I'm going to get a flashlight. I don't know how well I'll be able to show this here, but you can close your cylinders and put a flashlight in there and see how well. Make sure, I'm having a hard time aiming right at the camera, but you can get the idea. I can look down there and I can see everything is in reverse on this camera, so that's why it's hard. I can see if the cylinder hole is lined up with the barrel. Because they're a very tight fit, the cylinder hole is only going to be 1/1000th larger than the barrel itself. So when you index the cylinder, it has to be, if it's not lined up perfectly with the barrel, you're shining the light down that in the back. I'm just shining the light right here. Okay, a little bit of light in there. When I look down the end of the barrel, it's going to show quite clearly if that cylinder is aligned or not. If it's not aligned, you're going to see a little bit of an edge there, okay? So do that for every cylinder. Make sure they're all indexing properly. If you have a cylinder that's not indexing properly due to wear, very likely, or just poor manufacture, then you're going to have a gun that starts to pull it off out of the chamber, not in line with the barrel, and it's going to slam into one side of the rifle and just cause lousy accuracy. So you know, that's kind of the main things that I look for. As I said, you know, start off with the overall condition of the gun. Know what your intention for it is. If you're not looking for a lot of accuracy, well, then maybe some of these things you can live with. If you're looking for a showpiece, then the exterior of the gun's going to be quite important. But hopefully that's a bit helpful to you. Just trying to equip you a little bit for making a wise purchase decision. If the person selling the gun won't let you inspect the gun, don't buy it. Another thing is, you know, testing the trigger. For me, I just can't buy a gun without testing the trigger. It's so critical to the gun, but a lot of places won't let you do that anymore. So, you know, well, what can you do, right? Maybe sometimes you have to go on faith. Generally, a Smith & Wesson is going to be a super fine trigger. It's just slick, unless somebody's been in there monkeying around with it thinking they can make it better, which they can't. It's like great triggers right out of the box. This is Ruger Security 6, 2 3/4 inch barrel. This gun, again, it's same principles of assessing that apply. You might look for any modifications. I mean, on this gun, I just went ahead and I painted that front ramp, okay? Made it red. It's easier to see for indoor target shooting. But this is a fine gun. It's being used a lot. These guns last forever. So you just looking for the main things, like the lockup. You can see with this gun here, it's a little bit of wiggle, but it's not much. And these are the first things you check. Check for that hammer safety. I'm pushing hard against it, so it's not going down unless I pull the trigger. Yeah, it's a good gun. See if it can support its own weight. This one's a little odd to do that, but I don't want to drop the gun. Okay, this guy just too unbalanced to do that. But you know, check your trigger. Actually, the nicest thing about this Security 6 is it's got a really slick double action on it. Love this gun. This is 357 mag. So anyways, that's our little intro into assessing revolvers. And as I said before, check out my wife's work. Nakia's Native Crafts is what she calls herself, and she'll set you up. And thank you for watching, and please subscribe if you like our videos.